Welcome back. You're watching KTN News Desk. We are on to a second hour, still trying to understand what does the law say, where does this leave the country with the latest court cases and decisions, major decisions that have been taken by NASA to withdraw from the race. Lawyer Nelson Harvey is still with me here in studio. Nelson, once again, thank you very much for coming in. So,
thanks.
From that particular ruling that was made by Justice Mativo today, we are seeing other presidential candidates who participated in the August 8th election saying they want in, that they will now participate in the polls. Is it possible? Did the judgment, did that ruling cover them as well, or was it just an Ekuru court matter?
Now, the decision that was made by the court today was specific to Dr. Ekuru court. It said that the IBC should make an amendment to the Gazette notice to include him and him alone. There was no mention whatsoever of inclusion of any other candidates. Now, on the basis of that and that alone, the other individuals who now claim that they need to be included have a snowball chance in hell in being included. Number two, the decision to include Ekuru court was arrived at on the finding by the court that Ekuru court had participated as an interested party. The petition was supported by him, and to that extent, he was in that position similar to Raila Odinga as the petitioner. And for that reason and only that reason, the Supreme Court treated him as a petitioner.
Yeah.
And if that be the case, then he fitted perfectly in the category set by the Supreme Court in 2013 and also as envisaged in the legislation that was passed by the National Assembly today.
Yeah.
Now, if there was any other individual who considered defeat, a clear reading of the decision by the Supreme Court in 2013, as well as today's decision by Justice Mativo, precludes any such a candidate. And I mean, it's no longer in the realm of doubt. The only person who supported this petition was Ekuru court.
Ekuru court, yes.
The others who came to the Supreme Court opposed the petition. The others who considered defeat did not participate. It is quite clear that the inclusion, which in my opinion has been overtaken by events, only relates to Dr. Ekuru court and none of the other participants in the election of 8th August.
You mentioned that that ruling by Justice Mativo is very inconsequential, and I would really like you to break that down for us, for our viewers. Why would you say that this particular ruling is inconsequential and still that we cannot have an election on the 26th of October?
The sequence of what is supposed to happen should a candidate abandon his quest for an election was elaborately set out in the decision by the Supreme Court in 2013. It said in no uncertain terms that the moment there are only remaining two candidates and one notifies the IBC of his intention to withdraw from the contest, then a fresh election shall be held. Now, when a decision is expressed in the mandatory terms, it means it follows as a consequence of law. And all that IBC has to do is to enable the process for the conduct of a fresh election in the manner determined by the Supreme Court. And in this case, I'm talking about the 2013 decision, and in the manner set out in the Constitution. Now, in the manner set out in the Constitution, there has to be a free nomination that has to be undertaken within 90 days. Now, there are those who have argued that the withdrawal was of no consequence because Raila Odinga did not fill and submit Form 24A to the IBC. That argument does not hold water because Form 24A can only be submitted before an election and not after the invalidation of an election pursuant to an election petition. So to that extent, the letter by Raila Odinga, which was received by IBC yesterday, put into motion the events that necessitate the holding of a subsequent election. And quite timely, therefore, the decision by the court today will be of no consequence to what has already happened. Yes, in essence, the court has enjoined Ekuru court to an election that has already botched by operation of time. So it cannot participate in it.
In the election?
Yes.
So are we facing a constitutional crisis as a country?
Yes and no. Reason being, under the law, it's quite clear what IBC is supposed to do is to have an election and to ensure that nomination is done within the time frame. Now, yes, because past the 1st of November, President Uhuru Kenyatta will cease being an incumbent president. Now, that is a conundrum that the makers of the Constitution did not envisage. There is no provision in the Constitution on how to deal with this situation. How can it be resolved, bearing in mind the catastrophe that we're likely to face? I foresee President Uhuru Kenyatta insisting in being in office, and that is a possibility that we may need to deal with. And then I foresee also a quest from the NASA coalition demanding that he vacates office and somebody else, preferably the Speaker of the National Assembly, who will be now third in command, taking over on an interim basis to ensure that the electoral process is undertaken in the manner provided for in the Constitution. Again, there is the converse argument where you've seen Jubilee individuals insisting that now that Raila has withdrawn, then you must declare Uhuru Kenyatta president, and he must be sworn in as soon as possible. I think that is a very big dream. The law does not conceive of such a situation. The worst that they may push IEBC to do, and we're told that IEBC lawyers are now advising IEBC, is to push on with the election on the 26th of October. And if that be the case, then we may have an election that will not have the legitimacy of the people of Kenya, it will not have the legitimacy of the Constitution, and it will not have international acceptance. I don't think that is an avenue that anybody who is mindful of the affairs of the democratic gains we've made will want to take Kenyans through.
Then this means, does this mean that this has just opened Pandora's box of court cases after court cases?
Unfortunately, yes. And there can be no other avenue where disputes have to be determined. And whoever laments that the litigation process is going to derail, is going to interfere with the economy, I think should just shut up. Because when Raila Odinga lamented the manner in which his victory had been stolen, they told him, go to court. He went to court, and the court made a determination. And we are here because of a determination by the court, not because of the making of the supporters of Raila Odinga or because of the decision of Raila Odinga. And the Constitution and all election laws are meant to be interpreted by courts of law. And if there is need for such an interpretation, I do not think that it can be said that we are derailing development projects, because the Constitution must be upheld, it must be respected, and institutions that have been given the oversight of elections like IEBC, who history has indicated have always subverted the will of the people, cannot lament that we're not able to do our work because of this litigation. Litigation is there to ensure that what is provided for is complied with.
All right. Nelson, thank you very much for coming into KTN News Desk. Nelson Harvey is a lawyer, as we just try to interpret some sections of the law and what it means, the situation the country finds itself in right now, and